It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Suhel Parker. Mr. Suhel is the director of IAQA India chapter, has over 2 decades of experience in the IAQ sector. He is US certified EPA registered professional and trainer for managing conducting courses for hazardous materials like lead and mercury in indoor environments. As per US EPA regulations, Mr. Suhel also has 2 decades experience in restoration of building post flood and fire smoke damage of indoor environments. He has been working with property owners in India and the Middle East, providing sustainable IAQ solutions. Today, Mr. Suhel will briefly overview us about breathing easy, mitigating mold, and enhancing indoor air quality in modern buildings. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Suhel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking out the time to come in. Nitin had a lovely talk on the overall viewpoint of different contaminants in a building, in an indoor environment. I have picked the topic of mold and its problems and where it comes from, and especially considering that the monsoons are onset in Bombay, it has already hit, and uh, how it works and how it affects our indoor environment. So that's the topic of selection for today. Okay, we have 10 minutes. I might run some topics, some slides faster. Mold is nothing but fungus, um, and mushrooms are something like mold. It is a mold. And when you see buildings, you see those black and green growth in wall corners, on grills. That is all mold. And they do have consequences. A lot of time they're visually visible to us, but we are so used to it, we don't react, don't take action. The most common type of fungi are generally not hazardous. They are not hazardous and they're not hazardous to everybody. But a good percentage of people do get affected. A lot of people have asthma, hay fever. You might have noticed a lot of people when they enter an air-conditioned building or an office, they immediately eyes start watering, they start sneezing, sniffing, and the guy next to him is fine. And because some are more susceptible than others, but it does affect a lot of people. And you must have seen this scenario in many offices. One person is sitting with a sweater and sniffing all the time, the other sitting comfortably in the same environment. The most common symptoms are running nose, eye irritation, coughing, congestion. And what he does, and asthma, and it aggravates those people who have asthma, it aggravates those symptoms to him. A good percentage of Indians today have asthma. So you're talking about a good percentage of population in a building. And if it's not affecting you today, it might tomorrow. So you need to take note. A small percent of the population can develop more serious effects, such as fever and breathing difficulties. Even though mold affects people differently, and same thing as I said earlier, uh, it's not affecting all, but it will. And the fact that it's affecting some, it is definitely your symptoms are not so prominent. The system is fighting it, but it's there. But is mold necessary? Now you've got to understand, in the world environment, in the earth environment, mold helps break down, decompose materials. Uh, we always talk about materials are decomposable, and mold is a necessity. You can't say that there'll be zero mold anywhere, but it does affect us when in an indoor environment, it's in a high concentration, and a lot of people get affected. So, uh, do not we always talk about controlling mold, not eliminating it. If there was no mold, there would be no life on Earth. Life would have ended long time ago. It's a cycle of things. Things are born, they decompose, and they reborn, and that mold really plays a big part in that. What are the potential health effects? Well, you can have allergies, you have reactions, asthma. People have a lot of problems. And if you talk to a pulmonary doctor, there are other respiratory issues and complaints that come through mold, especially with younger children below 5, older people, senior people, especially in homes. It's a big issue. Practical ways of how to eliminate or control or reduce these spores which are prominent in the air that help in spreading of mold is by controlling moisture. And we just heard Nitin talking about the moisture being maintained in his room in a hotel at 80%. 10 things you need to know about mold. If mold is a problem in your home or school, clean up the mold. First thing, if you see it visually, get it cleaned. Use uh, a sanitizer or disinfectant to clean that wall surface. Second thing, you got to understand you have to eliminate if the source of the problem. And generally, the source is uh, a condensation taking place there, or water leakage taking place there in that environment. Find the source and you can fix the problem. Reduce humidity. Now, as we spoke, it should have been 30 to 60%. I was in a very premium house in India, one of the most premium houses, and the humidity there was 80% and temperature at 20 degrees. This means there's going to be condensation, definitely. And condensation means you're going to have moist growth of mold. And it's a straight sample. And wherever you have processes like uh, cooking is going on, or dishwashing is going on, or or in toilets, and a proper exhaust system should be there to take the moisture out to maintain humidity. Um, like in hotels, if the bathroom exhaust is not working, the moisture immediately goes into the air conditioning system or on the carpets the minute you open the door into the room. And that moisture sits on the carpet. And that's when you have this growth of mold multiply very, very fast. All damp areas, wet building areas, even furnishings which are wet, will even mold grows on wood, grows on more surfaces. So you need to keep surfaces dry. That means if you see condensation happening, take action immediately. Then you can clean hard surfaces. There are various materials are available to clean and absorbent materials to dry surfaces. We should get them, put them into action, prevent condensation. Most, if you go to hotels, quite often you have those sliding doors, and if you see a vent right across, and you'll see a lot of mold growth because hot air is hitting that vent, which is generating cold air, and you'll see definite mold signs, black dots on the place. It's visual. You can see it visually. We take air samples on a agar plate to get see how many mold samples are there, how many colony forming units are there. But in most cases, you don't even need to do that. Whenever I walk into a mill, I can see it visually, and we uh, choose to ignore it. 10 things you should. Acha, then we have about uh, carpets. If you have a very humid, moist area, avoid carpets. Carpets hold moisture. Hard floors are easier to dry. So in a city like Mumbai or Goa, carpets can definitely be avoided. And mold is such a fast growing, they grow in hours. They can grow on wood, paper, carpets, and specifically when you have flooding taking place, which is a major problem. So, say if your bathroom is overflowed, or if you had a fire and the fire department has sprayed water into your building, drying the building becomes a major issue because as the room dries, the walls start releasing more and more water. The moisture is absorbed in your building structure. So that leads to a lot of mold growth. And once that happens, getting mold out of a building which is already wet is one of the most difficult challenges. Where did it come from? What does mold need to grow? As you said, moisture, temperature. Temperature, you're talking about ideal comfort temperature you need to grow a mushroom. We're talking about, say, around 18 to 24 degrees. And that's what we have in our indoor environment. So the temperature is anyway ideal. We maintain that, but we can change that. But we can control the moisture and its source. Food source. What is a food source? Food source is all the uh, particulate matter, dust, little debris which generates within a building and which is landed up in the ducts in other locations, they form the food source for mold growth. So you cut the food source, control the moisture, you can control the mold. Once you know that's a life cycle. Instead of using a lot of chemicals to just reduce its content for a short while, you got to attack it on the source. Uh, Stop the life cycle of growth and control it. Now, you go to a building, you see water damage, HVC system, very common. The acoustic insulation after the coil unit before the duct, you see a lot of wet moisture. It gets very bad with mold, especially in hotels. You have humidifiers, you have drip trays which are full of water, which generate wet surface. You've got to look at the drip tray is not draining and water is staying there. You need to look at it. There are building defects, pipe leakages in old buildings. Intake is over next to a fountain. Blocked vents. Very often, when you block vents, you tend to create condensation. I've seen people feeling cold and putting a piece of paper or plastic and blocking a vent. Faulty mechanical equipment. If your coils are clogged and your drip trays are full, the capacity of the coil to remove moisture from the system is a problem. So your equipment, lack of cooling system. Uh, Generally, an air conditioning system does reduce humidity. And if that cooling system is not functioning properly, it lets a lot of moisture come into the buildings. And the contaminated coils are those. In fact, when you talk about coils and filters, if you maintain it clean, you not only get benefits of low moisture, control mold growth, but you will get energy efficiency also. I've been told just by this, you can control, get better efficiency by 15%. Food source, all your drywalls, ceiling tiles, building materials, dust, dirt, debris. If you can control these elements coming into your building, one very common way dust and dirt comes in is through the shoes when people enter an air conditioned building. A common practice, if you just put about 10 meters of carpet before entering a building, it will catch most of the dirt and dust from your shoes. There's small things which are very practical then we can be done. Then there are double door systems which you can have. Then a lot of renovation takes place in buildings on and off. And that happens with the air conditioning system on. Where do you think all the dirt and debris is going? It is going into your HVAC system and all over the building. And generally, when you're cleaning it also, your vacuum cleaner is throwing the finer particles up into the air again. And that's why you get a higher PM1 and PM2.5, which Nitin was talking about. This is a typical picture. You can see this. You must have seen this scenario in many places, especially in the monsoon time, in most houses and in office buildings, where you find corners which have done black and green like this on ceilings. They should be looked at immediately. It's not practical to remove all of it, but controlling it is important. The key word is controlled moisture. To have a moisture control, and monitoring humidity in the office is a step ahead. Now, the air conditioning system performs a magnifying effect in the lungs of the building. It takes its force and spreads it right across the building. And so the growth multiplies. It's like the seed for more growth. So if one infected area can contaminate the entire building through the HVAC system. Mold spores that are in the air are pulled in through the return, through our coils, through our filters, where they multiply further. As I said, they grow in hours, and they are spread right across. There's a lot of food source. Dirty ducts have the food that increases the cycle of growth of multiplication. Cooling coils, and then it finally gets into the ducts. The spores are spread right across. So you need to, when you have an central air conditioning system, understand that it's going to spread all over the place. So wherever there's visible growth around air vents, there's condensation on vents, there's odor. Now, talking about odor, we spoke about the hotel Nitin was talking about, and where they were saying they were keeping the temperature at 19. I've gone to hotels and I've insisted and brought the temperature at 25. You know what happens? I get a bad odor. You know why I get the bad odor? Because the entire insulation post the fan coil unit was wet and had thick mold growth. And mold odor was stronger at 24, 25 degrees, to the extent I don't want to stay in this 5-star hotel room because it's smelling. To avoid that smell, they're spending that money and running at 19 degrees. And this I've seen in the best chain of hotels in the country. What happens? The condensation on the insulation which is there, totally wet, and growth takes place. And that's a clear question, evidence for poor maintenance. Anyway, you don't need to panic. This is happening all over us. We've got mold all over the place. All you need to know is have the knowledge, locate the source, communicate your actions, and document it. Document it why? If it's happened today, it will happen tomorrow again. So there was a way we had fixed it, and we should have a look into it. You can always speak to HVAC engineers, call professionals who are expert in the field, because once the growth starts, it continues, and it comes to a status where your building starts smelling over a long period of time. When mold infestation is very heavy, if you see a lot of old heritage hotels, they smell. It's a very difficult task if you've not watched it and let it go. Understand one thing, we as HVAC industry, they blame the air conditioning system. It's the building that is contaminating air conditioning system. We can very easily disinfect and clean the HVAC system, but it is getting contaminated by the building. You need to find out other sources from where the moisture and food source is coming up, not just the air conditioning system. We can concentrate on building contaminants, maintain, when you're cleaning it, you have to maintain negative pressure, because we cannot, when we clean and agitate, we cannot allow the spores to spread to other areas. So generally, a negative pressure machine is used with a HEPA filtration system that can capture these spores. And when maintenance is being done, this is as per the OSHA requirements. Okay, you maintain your building and offices, you will have better morale, better productivity, rather than people sneezing and feeling uncomfortable, breathless, and having to go out every 15 minutes for fresh air. They'll have better productivity, it will improve comfort, and there'll be lesser claims. In India, we don't have claims so much, but abroad, it's a issue for insurance claim. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have. I've run this very quickly because of shortage of time and exceeded my 10 minutes by a few.
Thank you, Mr. Suhel, for sharing and highlighting the significance of breathing easy, mitigating mold, and enhancing indoor air quality in modern buildings.